that I, Miles Gopega, big dreamer, was just a normal guy. And what I took out from the video is the following points. The first thing is obviously belief. I think all those guys up there in that video, all they had in common was the fact that, number one, they believed in their vision. More importantly, they believed in themselves. They then started beginning to believe in whatever the journey was, whether it was a product, whatever it was, but they had belief in it. And I think self-branding is about personal belief. Such a big dreamer. You can't start it and not finish it. But they believed. That's the first and foremost thing. But I guess the other most important thing for me is to dare to dream big. I genuinely believe in that in the world, or more so in South Africa, that people don't dream big enough. And I think this is a lesson I learned at Microsoft back in the day, was that, when I worked there, it was like we're going to put a desktop on we're going to put a PC on every desktop. That's a big, lofty dream. I mean, this was in the early 2000s. We're going to put a PC on every desktop. What weed are you smoking? And but you know what? The bigger the dream and the ridiculous the dream, the funny thing is, the more achievable it is. Because it's... yeah, because... and the funny thing is, the most amazing dreams, in my experience, I have never been about the person. It's about for the betterment of a whole. It's never about me. It's about what can I do to change society. Now, I've always had this problem. My mother. No, my mother is not a problem. Let me rephrase that. But forever since I could remember, my mother kept on saying one thing to me, that I need to make a mark on the world. Try and change the world. So now that's a big lofty dream for, I was like 3 years old and being told to change the world. I mean, seriously. But I think the essence of that was that if you don't try and aspire to do something bigger than you, you become a number. You're just a stat. And that's my mother's favorite saying there at the bottom there. It says, don't be an also-ran. So in a race, like a marathon, I always watch it with amusement because there's 6,000 people who enter the Boston Marathon. But we all know there's going to only be one winner. It's the only thing that makes you survive and continue is the passion for what you do. It's because he says it's unnatural. Any normal person would never take the kind of pain that as entrepreneurs take on a daily basis. So congrats to the guys, and lunch on me anytime. You will be paid. I would like to tell you my story, and in so by doing, do some self-branding. I saw that ad like everybody else on TV, and South African Brewers pumped it, and I thought, wow, that's an awesome ad. But more than that, it was an inspirational advert. And living in a country where there's sometimes a lot of doom and gloom, it's always nice to see something that is relatively positive. And I thought to myself, I wonder if it's actually based on a true story. I wonder if Vuyo actually exists. And like most people, I pondered and I pondered, but it did something, I guess, that put me in good stead. I actually did some research. I took the time to use Google or Bing. Microsoft is here. And then only to find that there was no Vuyo. It was just a creative advert that some guys in Cape Town came up with, and when I realized there was no Vuyo, I promptly trademarked it. And promptly was the part where I actually took the steps to trademark it, but it wasn't so prompt to get the actual trademark in place. It took about 2 years, but lesson learned there. But I did. I trademarked it, and I thought, okay, so that's cool. Now what? So I've got a trademark, great, so what, really, And that's actually the funny part, is that once I started doing that, weirdly, I started becoming Vuyo. I started thinking bigger. I was like, okay, so now I got a trademark. How about I start some Boerewors carts and get that thing going, like in the video. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I actually did. I started with the carts, and that was great, but it wasn't shooting the lights out anytime quick, and I wasn't going to change this world anytime soon. So started dreaming bigger. I thought, why not a restaurant? Hey, while I'm at it, why not a chain of restaurants? Why not go international? I started dreaming big, but obviously, at some point, you got to wake up and actually do. because dreaming is easy, but the doing is actually, you gotta wake up and actually do. So, not having much of a budget, I always knew though that I wanted a world-class store, because what I've seen is that most South African fast food restaurants were really dodgy. In other words, a fast food restaurant selling South African food. They were always like dodgy, they weren't very aspirational, and I wanted to change that. Why I wanted to, and that's the why. Why I wanted to change it. I think South Africa's got a lot to offer. We've got an amazing culture, and in order to do that, you gotta give ourselves personal pride first and get our cuisine world class, and then the rest of the people will adopt us. And this is why, and I always thought food is a nice way of exporting your culture. And there's a lot of cultures that have managed to do that so well, Chinese food, Italian, and they just the standard. And I thought to myself, why can't South African food be the standard? Why can't we be referred to like all the other food categories? So that's what I started doing. So next thing was to get a store. It's like, tough one. Nobody wants to give a young entrepreneur a site in a most pristine real estate space, because they all want to save it for the multinationals. And there I was, but guys, you don't understand. I am a multinational. You just don't know it yet. Yeah, they didn't get it. No. And we got rejection a lot of times. In fact, I think the grand total was 7. And eventually we finally got a site opposite Wits. But we did have to give our blood and DNA to the landlord. But eventually, though, we got a site. Now, the nice thing about being an entrepreneur, you learn not to think too far ahead. You've got big dreams, but your tactical steps are like this close. Let me tell you something for free. If I had sat down and drafted a business plan for this business, I think technically, or most probably, I would have never started it. Because the cost would have, you would have looked at that number and you would have gone, yeah, maybe next time, But what I learned to do was compartmentalize everything. So I just said, we start with the site. When we got the site, was like, okay, now we got a site, what now? And I was like, okay, we need to design it. So I went to, I always knew, because I wanted to make it world class. So I said, who designed McDonald's stores? I want that guy. So I found him and I went to that guy. And I told him, listen, I've got caviar dreams on a McDonald's budget. Can you help me out? And he said, not so much. But what I think he did find interesting about me was that I actually had started doing something. So I may have not had the money, but I definitely did have a brand and a site. That was pretty much it. But he could see beyond that, because a lot of people talk, not very many do. But at least because I started, and this reminds me of a story my mother always told me, was that if you're stuck on the side of the road, almost always no one stops to help you. But if you're stuck on the side of the road and you start pushing your own car, you'd be surprised as to how many people stop. And I'm sure the lady in the green dress got helped out with that dress. I'm sure a lot of guys stopped. But it's true. So this guy, because he saw that I already started, he came into the picture, and we started, and we designed me the most amazing stores, and we launched on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th. And now, what do you do for a grand launch? I thought, wow, maybe we get snow machines and make it something memorable and all of that. I'm a dreamer. I did my thing, and finding a snow machine in the middle of December was not so smart. But we got one eventually, and in fact, we got 4. And we had the most amazing launch, I think. And the funny thing about the launch, though, was that it was actually, in fact, the opening day was on the 26th, so it was day after Christmas, Boxing Day, and we had a snow machine, and people were having Sunday post-Christmas lunch on a white snowy day kind of thingy, and it was really, really cool, if I say so. I think you agree, right? Now, great. The people in there enjoyed it, and they had itombolo and stew, and it was all amazing and all of that. Except no one else saw it, because in Braamfontein in the middle of December, there's nobody. No one told me that. So the next day, I'm sitting there. The restaurant is empty. Nice clean tables, but it's empty. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, this is not what I bargained for. But I think to myself, okay, it's Thursday. Maybe let me call the Sunday Times. Maybe someone will be interested in, because I only think one step ahead. So I call them, And I hadn't thought beyond that part. So someone answers the phone and says, "Hi, can we help you?" I go, would you be interested in hearing a story about how I made it snow in the middle of summer in South Africa, in Joburg? And the lady says, "Yeah, hold on for a reporter." And then I had to go and tell the reporter the whole story. To be honest with you, I don't think the reporter was really interested in the story. He was like, "Yeah, send me a picture, okay, whatever." And then after a couple of calls of that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to write the story for him. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote the whole story with the pictures, and everything was great, this and all of that. And I even put his typeset it, as well as put his byline on the thingy, and I emailed it to him. And he called me about 20 minutes later with a chuckle in his voice, and he said, "Okay, so what else happened?" And he asked me one or two questions. And by that time, I thought, okay, at very best, maybe we'll get page 78 in the Sunday Times. And it's a thin one, remember, in December, you know. So this is what we got instead. The front page of the Sunday Times. And we'd been operating for 3 days. So, lesson 1 on self-branding. Dare dream, be audacious. That's all it took, was a phone call. I mean, I was beaten up at that time when the tables were empty, but, you know, I saw beyond my present circumstances and I acted on it. And that one article on the Sunday Times led to such media hype and amazing stuff that ensued from there, to the point that today I had an interview with Forbes magazine. And thank you. And you know, the funny thing is, we had written our trajectory on our wall in our bathroom. So when you come to our restaurant in Braamfontein, Connor, Stevens and Bertha, you'll see in our bathroom that we've got our plan, what we wanted to achieve in the next, I think it's up till 2022. And being on the cover of Forbes magazine, I think was in 2018 or something. We haven't gotten the cover, but we got an interview. At least that's a start, right? I mean, you know. But we did it, and so early. I think that's cool. I think that rocks, if I say so. So, obviously, then the biggest thing for me was, so what? What is our purpose? What is our vision? And my biggest purpose in life, beyond making South African food the most relevant cuisine in the world, or one amongst the most relevant, was to empower other entrepreneurs. And luckily, this advert gave me that opportunity to do that as well. And this is what we've done with our Voya's mobile cart. We've just signed a deal with Spa. We should start seeing our mobile carts outside spas around the country. We're doing a pilot now with first 3. And that's real. And that's my griller there, Peter. And that's his. And it's zero cost for the entrepreneur. So the business model is such that the entrepreneur doesn't put anything up front. We cater for him. All he has to prove is, you know, we find them, train them. But obviously the biggest thing for me is I want people who've shown that they've done something, they've started. You know, that's so that was at Maponya Mall. We served over 1,000 people that day. So from the street corner from the small business to the dream business. So hopefully people will graduate up to the Voya's business and ultimately to New York. And actually, ironically, again today, it was a good day actually. It didn't start off so good, but it ended up being not so bad. We got invited to, in December, to go to New York to basically pitch our concept there. And so I think that's positive. Thank you. Yeah, so you start somewhere. Like I said, I'm a big dreamer.